Hello. Happy Sunday morning. We're doing the Sunday morning show instead of the Sunday evening show that we did last week. Um, I'm
We're back.
Jennifer. We're back. Back at it again with our bullshit. Back on our bullshit again. That
Back
should
on the
be
bullshit.
the
Should that
Sunday
be-
show. Like
So are we just gonna make like a thing of like slogans where it's like dumb bitch money and then back on our bullshit?
yes.
Okay, cool.
Dumb bitches back on there. We'll hammer it out.
We'll get it.
I have a feeling that by the end of the show, we'll have like another tagline, or we'll have like another.
We usually do. We usually
Yeah,
have like a couple of taglines as we're going in and out.
yeah. So, for anyone watching, thank you so much for being here on Sunday. So I'm Jennifer. Comics will break your heart, and then we've got Mars, that comic girl.
That
I know
comic girl.
that comic girl,
I
and
have the necklace that proves it now.
that's so awesome.
I'm so lame. I don't even care. Like my boss literally saw it and was like, "That comic girl," and then he realized he's like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like,
You're like,
"It's official."
duh. And you have like every single like social media handle for it too. I'm very jealous because I'm gonna have to fight someone to get the Twitter.
I still have to fight
and
somebody for the Instagram because somebody has like the regular one, so mine is with 3 L's, and I'm like, just give it up, man. You haven't
yeah,
even used Instagram since like 2012.
come on, people. So if anyone out there has the hookup or knows how to like get things done, maybe make people disappear,
Please delete this
let us
Instagram so I can have it. Please. It's all I want out
yeah.
of life.
Exactly. Um, so I know we were talking a little bit backstage about what we're doing, what's going on. What have you been up to this week?
I have been a productive little person this weekend. So I filmed 2 videos this weekend. So I got up 7 a.m. this morning and was like in the editing zone. And then I'm like, I kind of want to film another video today. And I'm like, don't do that. Just get your editing done and then you can film another video later. And I'm like, I went from being sick for 2 weeks and not being able to like really record everything because I was all nasally and gross. And now that I'm feeling better, I'm like, all right, I'm out the gate. I want to film like 8 million things. I want to make all this content. And like, it's just so much. And then I'm working on like, so some people don't know this, but I actually write comics, or I would like to write comics. And now I'm back on my bullshit with being excited about something I've been working on. And I'm like, I got to edit, I got to write. And I just wish that I could become multiple Mars and split myself and have like a million of me doing all the things I need to do. What about you? What have you been up to in the land of Jen?
The land of Jen. So, because I do a couple of different shows on a couple of different channels, I feel like that's been the big focus for me. Of course, like Wednesdays and Thursdays, I feel like are my big read days where I spend like the majority of the time reading. And then I do a show on Friday with Dan, Friday in the morning, and then, or not in the morning, but like at 2. And then at 6, I have a show with Hero and the Kid and a couple of other friends. So that's been interesting. I also did the graphic novel book club on Dan's channel, Comic Shop News.
That's right. You guys read Scooby and the Apocalypse.
We did, and that was a pretty fun read. I was actually a really big fan of the Flintstones comic when it came out, and
that was a good one.
It it was really good. Apparently, there's like 6, 7 volumes of Scooby Apocalypse that I had no clue that there was that many. I'm like, okay, there's like 1 or 2.
That's insane.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to say hi to a couple people in the chat because we've got a couple people here. Travis, good morning. As usual, you're always the first one here. I absolutely love it. Thank you for being here.
He sets an alarm for the Casually Comics show, so that way he's always the first in line.
I am okay with this, like 100%. Like I will go ahead and like give you a schedule way ahead of time, just so you know what we're planning and scheming. And then of course, Chaos and Comics. Hello, friends. Everyone's saying hi to people in the chat. I absolutely love it. And then we got Hero and the Kid, Sean and or Will. Not sure, I'm never really sure. I assume it's both of you, and then maybe Lady Hero and the Kid if she's there as well. Comic Book G Spot. How are you doing today? On Comic Book G Spot's channel, well, not him, but there was a show last night and there were so many fantastic ladies on. We got Fuchsia, we got Sanimation was on there, we got Lady G, Lady Fantastic, oh my goodness, Matilda. Who else was on? I feel like I'm forgetting someone, but it was such a fun show. It was really good watching all the ladies. Like,
we need more women in comics. Like, listen,
we really do. Yeah, 100%. So let's see here. We've also got one of my favorite people. I'm going to go and pull this one up. John's Comics with Kids. Saturday morning show, literally like my favorite show of the week. I was sad because I had to work early in the morning yesterday, so I had to like stealth put the show on in the background, and I like caught 15 minutes on my break. So good to see him as well. And then let me see. I feel like I'm forgetting someone else here. But then we've got Real Rude 6. Hello, what is up, ladies?
This morning.
Okay, cool. So lots of people in the chat. So let's go ahead, and I know we were talking a little bit about what we read this week, a little bit about Future State. So we'll go ahead and I feel like I like starting with Future State. I only got 4 titles this week.
I only got 2.
What were your 2? Was you got Catwoman and
Wonder Woman? Immortal Wonder Woman, of course.
Yeah.
Listen, nothing but love for my ladies. And then I was able to finally get my hands on Future State, Wonder Woman, and Superman, but I haven't read it yet because life has just been crazy busy. But of course, as soon as I got home, dove right into the Future State titles because Immortal Wonder Woman, man, I was so excited for it. Like, can we talk about that?
Of course. So in this one, for anyone who's, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. For anyone who hasn't been reading it, Immortal Wonder Woman is different than the Yara Flor Wonder Woman. So
Immortal Wonder Woman is still Diana Prince. And I feel like this is something I know that you and Dan were talking about on the book club show, but Future State, I feel like there's a lot of different timelines going on, and it feels like this book in particular is one of the what if universes per se. Like, I feel like this one is a lot more connected to Dark Knight Death Metal. Not saying that you can't read this book if you haven't read Dark Knight Death Metal, because I certainly did not read that book and was still able to follow along, but I do feel like this is more of a not quite post-apocalyptic, but like I said, definitely like a darker alternate future state, if you will, of what's to come or what could be. So I thought that was really interesting.
Especially because this one kind of starts out, you know, it's really grim. There's a conversation between Diana and Swamp Thing, and she's basically like, hold on, Swampy. Like, so this is obviously different than the Swamp Thing.
And that was a big surprise to me to see Swamp Thing in that. And I immediately thought of you, and I was like, oh, well, Jen's going to be excited that Swamp Thing's in this book.
Well, I saw this and immediately thought of you.
Listen.
Because everyone should know that like we are both big Barda stans in this household.
We love Big Barda. We want Big Barda to grade us against her abs. Like, please crush me. Please and thank you. And like the fact, just seeing Jen Bartel, I think, on interiors again, because we don't really get to see her on interiors a lot. Her art is just so beautiful and so majestic. And I always say that she has this like Lisa Frank color palette. Everything is so bright and so colorful and like this neon, but not quite neon. Like, it's like a neon that works. Like, again, it's Lisa Frank. So seeing her draw these characters, seeing her draw Big Barda, which I had seen her drawing, but I didn't realize until I read the book that, okay, you were actually showing off little bits and pieces of Future State Wonder Woman. And I was like, not to mention Diana's design in this book. I love ponytail Diana. Like, I feel like that's something that we need to see more in
like
comics.
Cute little like bangs kind of coming
through.
She's got the little bit of fringe.
Like she's got it going on. But I think one of the things I really loved about this book, and what made me sad because it didn't last that long, was seeing all of the Amazons and seeing the different Amazon designs, because that's one of my favorite parts about Wonder Woman books is being able to see Themyscira and seeing the wide range of looks and culture that is on, you know, Themyscira. And there was a fat babe Amazon, and I'm like, oh, well, I can be an Amazon now, so I was excited about that. But yes, Modern Lit is right. Jen Bartel is the Pantone color of comics. Listen, her work is just, it's stunning. It's
It
chef.
is.
It's great.
And especially in Immortal Wonder Woman, because we dip into Themyscira and we get to dip into Apocalypse as well. So seeing the dynamic colors between the two worlds, and even the darkness of Apocalypse, and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
spoiler alert, we've got our big bad dark seed, dark side.
Dark side.
Dark side. I'm like, wait, is it seed? Dark side. So we've got him coming through, and you know, he definitely gives that like those big villain vibes, and seeing the brightly colored artwork, but then toning it down with her, like, I don't know, the way she did
Yeah.
those colors is just
And I was
fantastic.
going to mention that too. So, like, we see her drawing these women. We see her drawing Big Barda and Wonder Woman and all these Amazons. But then also seeing her draw characters like Darkseid and Superman even pops up. And even Batman pops up in a panel or two. But, like, being able to see her draw these, like, I guess, quote unquote, men that are rough and tough and gruff and should not really, like, when you think of Jen Bartel's style, you think that it won't translate well over to these sort of like gruff characters, but it worked. And it just proves the range that she has, you know, and she could probably jump on any book and kind of carry it home, honestly. Like, I'd love to see her on an X-Men book. I think she would be fantastic on an X-Men book. I know it would be a lot. I know she focuses on covers, but I would kill to see that.
I would love to see Jen Bartel do a like Jubilee book or a Dazzler book. Like,
Yes.
I wish you know, I was thinking about like maybe we should do a show about like I mean, I have like underrated characters that are just absolute favorites. Like, I love Jubilee and I love Dazzler, and I don't think that they were initially written well, where they get underutilized for that purpose. So I would love to see, like, I'm just going to go ahead and use that Mars magic where I'm going to wish my um uh comic book creative team wishes and ideas into the universe. So if we could
I'd
get
like
that,
to see her on an Amethyst book. If we got to throw a DC book in the ring, something like Amethyst, where it's very fantastical, and just seeing her be able to dive into Gem World, I think would be really great. But yes, I agree. Seeing her on a Dazzler or a Jubilee book, especially because these are ladies that thrive on color and thrive on that kind of wow factor, it screams Jen Bartel, you know?
100%. So let's just go ahead and like, because you know, I know the editors at Marvel, and Jen Bartel probably watches this show. Like, she's here in the chats, just keeping it
In
low
the
key.
chat, keeping it low
So
key.
yeah, so you know, just let's go ahead and see this happen.
But what's great about Immortal Wonder Woman, now that we're off our Jen Bartel hop, so Immortal Wonder Woman was one of the big books that had a backup story in it. And with Immortal Wonder Woman, we got to see Nubia return. And I love seeing Nubia. Like, if we want to talk about underutilized characters for DC, she's probably number one. Like, she is so cool and so rad. And that one panel where she's in the suit and it's all it is I am Wonder Woman. And you see her natural hair taking up 90% of the page. It's like, I loved seeing her. And I hope that DC Comics carries it through with the diversity inclusion, and we can see this kind of dribble through Future State, or after Future State into, what do we call, is it New Front? It's not New Frontier.
Infinite Frontier.
Infinite Frontier, because we need to see more of this into Infinite Frontier instead of it just being a self-contained event. But I think that both stories really did lend themselves to one another, because I know with some of these, like with Dark Detective and stuff, I know that books that tend to have multiple stories in them, you know, one will be weaker than the other or vice versa. But I feel like both of these stories equally carried themselves very, very well. And I feel like people are going to lose or maybe forget or maybe not even know the fact that Wonder Woman does feature a Nubia backup story as well. So if you've never experienced the character, this is a great jumping on point, you know, to experience both Wonder Womans, honestly.
Exactly. And for the $5.99 price point, to get the two stories,
not bad.
Not bad at all. I do think that if someone did enjoy this, in a very weird way, I think that they would also enjoy Wonder Woman Dead Earth. And maybe vice versa. So if you enjoyed Wonder Woman Dead Earth, I think that you would also enjoy this
Both have
Immortal
very
Wonder
similar
Woman.
vibes with that. Like I said, not post-apocalyptic, but like dark alternate future. So I totally agree with you on that. If you liked one, check out the other and vice versa.
Chaos says it's only infinite until the next continuity upheaval. Yeah.
Facts. I've been thinking about DC Comics a lot lately, and I feel like it's because of Future State and how excited Future State has sort of made me for DC Comics again. But thinking about the continuity sort of shifts with DC Comics versus maybe Marvel, and it's like with DC Comics, you have characters like the Hawks who are constantly being rebooted and constantly have like these multiple lives where they don't even know themselves what they want them to be, if they want them to be Thangarians, if they want them to be actual bird people. But like Power Girl and Supergirl, for example, is a character that doesn't make sense at all. Like, you have these characters that are literally the same character. They're both cousins of Superman, but they come from alternate timelines and are aged up differently. And one is, I don't want to say a fetish character, but obviously people,
It's like fan service.
It's fan service. I mean, I like Power Girl over Supergirl because I think she's a good character and I really like some of the aspects of her character. But obviously most people, especially men, don't want to be that person, but men, when they say they like Power Girl, we all know why you like Power Girl.
Window.
And I agree with you.
Window.
It's the boob window. But like, I sometimes I just wonder what went through DC Comics heads, especially during that 70s and 80s time period when they were doing these like multiple universes, but like having the same characters, but then having the characters come together and exist in the same universe. Like, it's one thing to have multiple universes and have different iterations of the characters, but then to have them merge, like, it's not as seamless as like Miles Morales and Peter Parker Spider-Man. Like, I feel like that was like a seamless shift, whereas DC Comics has always been kind of messy. I don't know. That was my rant for the morning.
Yeah.
Just something I've been thinking about.
100% agree with you there. So Chaos does say, so far I've just liked the Rom V books in Future State. I have high hopes for Mark Russell's book. So spoiler alert, we're going to talk about Rom V a lot today.
Yes.
And I know that you read this one as well. So Catwoman, this one, so I will be 100% honest. Catwoman was probably my least favorite of the ones that I read.
Really?
But I read all of them and enjoyed them so much that, like, even though I'm sorry, not this one, but the sorry, I didn't love Superman. But out of all the ones that I loved, this one I loved kind of the least, but I still really enjoyed it because it was a good story and it was a quick read too.
It was. So Catwoman Future State, I've been kind of off the Catwoman game. I mean, I have all the issues, but I've been really behind on it. But this is a book that you could honestly jump into and you wouldn't know you wouldn't be missing a beat, basically. So it's basically like a Snowpiercer-esque story.
Yes, that's what I said, Snowpiercer.
The magistrate has taken over and they're kind of shifting everybody into these trains, like poor people and underprivileged people, and shoving them into these trains. And Catwoman is kind of acting as like this resistance sort of leader. And I really, really like that. And I think that was like a fitting role for her. We got to see her in this new costume. We got to see her with her own like kind of group of people as she assumed a leader type role. And yes, like Chaos said, it had a hell of a good cliffhanger in it that was really interesting, and I'm really excited to see where issue 2 goes. But the thing that I loved most about Catwoman, I feel like I'm the minority because I feel like I'm the minority who knows this character, but Catwoman Future State brought back the return of Onomatopoeia, which is one of my all-time favorite villains. He was a villain created by Kevin Smith and was utilized mostly in the Green Arrow universe. And then that was it, because something weird happened where Kevin Smith stopped writing for DC Comics, but he told DC that they could not use this character anymore. So Onomatopoeia is literally in like 3 or 4 issues since he debuted in like 2002, 2003. And I've been wanting to see Onomatopoeia return. So the fact that Ram V went in guns a-blazing and was probably like, I mean, I imagine in my fantasy, this is what happened, was he kicked down the doors to DC Comics and was like, listen, I want Onomatopoeia. I'm going to use Onomatopoeia. And so that's how we got Onomatopoeia. I'll take it. I just, listen, So
I
exciting.
imagine the way that he did it, he just like went in only saying like sounds.
Hmm.
And he's like, flash, bang.
But
And
that's
they're
But that's how he is. And like, I don't know if they're going to show it because he made a very, very brief appearance in Catwoman Future State. He was only in it for like a page or two. And I'm assuming he's going to be in it more in issue 2. Onomatopoeia is a dark fucking villain. He is dark. Like, for those of you that don't know, real quick side story here, because I love Green Arrow and I love talking about Green
yes,
Arrow,
please.
but Onomatopoeia shows up in Green Arrow. I believe it's like issue like 14 or 15, something like that. It's in the early stages. It's in volume 2, I can tell you that. But it happens during Oliver Queen's son having surgery, and like Onomatopoeia does something terrible to Connor Hawke. I can't remember what, but it basically puts him on the brink of death. And he's not a good villain. Like, I mean, no villains are good, but he's a dark villain. He's willing to do what he has to do to please himself, I guess. But there is this iconic moment where in the operating theater, Green Arrow captures Onomatopoeia and he literally holds a arrow into his mouth, and it's one of the explosive arrows. He holds it in his mouth and is like, if my son dies, you will die. And that is literally how their standoff happens, is while his son is being operated on, Green Arrow has him at basically gunpoint or arrow point, whatever you want to call it.
At arrow point.
And it's badass. And like, I'm just glad that he's back. So like, if we can get Green Arrow back now, I'd be really happy.
So I know that there's a couple of other well, maybe we'll save the future, sorry, Infinite Frontier post future state.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, we'll talk a little bit about what's coming out, and because we're going to take some time and talk about what's coming out a little bit later. I know I asked this earlier, but did you get a chance to? You didn't get a chance to read Nightwing?
I did not. I flipped through it because it's Nicola Scott art, and it is very nice. I can just say from flipping through it, it is very nice.
So this one was probably my favorite book of the week. And the reason why is because I think that the dialogue was so good. It just blended with the artwork. I felt like I could just go into this knowing nothing about what was going on. And
Mm-hmm.
there's some really interesting moments between Nightwing and new Batman. And so I really enjoyed this title a
Who
lot.
wrote that one?
Constant, I'm not sure their first name, but
Okay,
see, you
but
did that to me because normally I'm like, who's the
no,
creative team?
but it seems like somebody new, which is nice. And I was just curious because you said that the dialogue was so nice. So like,
Mm-hmm.
it seems that maybe the reason why that is because there's a fresh pair of hands on that book that hasn't done it, and it's not the same generic dialogue that we see. So
Yeah, and you're right, Nicola Scott's artwork is just I'm so used to her on Black Magic, and it's just like kind of black white grayscale, but seeing the color in this one it was truly it
So
was
is this
really
where
really good.
you tell me you've never read Secret Six?
I have read Secret
Okay.
Six, but I
Because
only read.
the way she draws Bane in that book, oh my god. We want to talk about himbos. We want to talk about himbo art. We want to talk about himbo queens. Nicola Scott is the himbo queen because the way that she draws buff ass men is just, it's beautiful, and I thank her every day for that.
The only one that I've read, I think I've read the first volume that Gail Simone did. I'm trying to look at my
Gail Simone did all of it except for a small stint. There was like 2 or 3 issues that were done by I can't think of his name, but he wrote the original Suicide Squad. He did a brief small arc, but the rest of it is all Gail Simone. And let me tell you, it is one of the best books DC has ever done. It's probably one of the queerest books I've ever read, surprisingly enough. And like, I've had conversations with Gail Simone where we've talked about her queer representation in it, and there's some that are blatant because there's lesbian representation, but I feel like there's some bisexual representation in the book, some asexual representation, and bringing it up to her and having conversations with her. She's like, I didn't intend for that, but then now that you've said it and I look back at it, you were kind of right. And I'm like, I love queer representation in comic books. Like, what's good?
And it's so funny because I feel like Gail Simone gets a lot of shit, especially from the dummies on Twitter who just hate her for putting like diversity, and for her to just be like, I mean, I guess I did it. Like, it's
It's like
no big
subconscious.
deal.
Her subconscious, she did it. That's just how her brain works.
I'm going to go ahead and bring up a couple of the comments on the screen. I do want to say hi to my friend Nicole. Porn Parody loves Power Girl too.
Facts. Hard facts.
Hard fact. Alrighty, let's see here. Funny, she had henchmen in Future State, and in Batcat makes fun of the villains having henchmen.
Facts. Also, Batman Catwoman, not going to talk about a whole lot, was not loving it. Did not love it this week. I feel like that's going to be definitely a book where I'm going to need all 12 issues together to really enjoy it. You know, that's it. That's all I'm going to leave it at.
My biggest thing about Batcat was that the first issue was so jarring the way that it went back and forth. I do think that it's getting somewhere. I do think that maybe it will be a better just like trade all at once read, so then you understand the flow, because even knowing that it was going to do the back and forth switching the timelines, that made me enjoy issue 2 better than I enjoyed issue 1. But I do think that knowing that, going in and seeing that, like, you know, for 12 volumes straight, or sorry, 12 issues straight for one volume, I think will be a little bit easier.
Oh, I agree completely. And if I'm being honest, I feel like the super inclusion of Joker might be what is turning me off, because I can't stand the Joker, and I was promised a nice, fun Batman Catwoman book with like Mask of Phantasm thrown in. So it's like, okay, I'm here for that. And then I'm getting the Joker, and I'm like, I don't want this anymore. But maybe that's just me, because I feel like, we all know I'm a Tom King stan, but I feel like his weakest arc for me is the War of Jokes and Riddles, and that's just because it's two characters that I don't like. So hopefully with the ending of Batcat 2, you know, I'll be happier with issue 3, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. And Chaos brings up a good comment, because Tom King in all 3 of his current books, let me think, because there's Strange Adventures.
What's the third book? Because he's got Batcat, he's got Strange Adventures, which, yes, I agree, does have a lot of switching back and forth. But I don't think he's doing anything else. Correct us if we're wrong, Chaos.
I feel like I know what it is, and I feel like I read it and I didn't. But Rorschach.
Rorschach. I forgot he's doing that book, and I just kind of let it zone out, because I'm like, why do we keep doing Watchmen stuff?
Yeah.
Let it die.
So you're right. I guess that's Tom King's kind of writing style, but I guess because I was really introduced to Tom King with his Vision run, as well as Mr. Miracle run, where there's not really that much going, like with the timeline switching.
It's just weird.
Yeah. But let's I'm so over the Batman Joker dynamic. 2 white guys, it just annoys. Yeah.
Can this be our new quote? Can we just have this displayed forever?
Just
keep it there forever. That's how I feel all the time.
I think that's definitely the feeling, is that even the like Batman Joker stories that end up being dark and gritty and we're gonna show off Batman's dick, it's still just like
facts.
I mean, even though I will die on the hill that I am here to write a dark and gritty Batman book, because we've got Batman Year 1, we've got Batman Year 100. I'm here to do Batman Year 18, barely legal.
I think that we need to have a Casually Comics bingo chart now. And I feel like Jen pitching Batman Year 18 needs to be a square.
100%. Like, one of the squares also needs to be Dune. One of the squares needs to be me talking about, it'll be like either Batman Year 18 / The Pearls. It'll be one of those two, and those will just to the square. So if anyone wants to help us create a Casually Comics bingo board, yeah, let's do this. Let's have a bingo night. But you know, there was a lot of other books that came out this week too. So some of the books, I'm going to go ahead and just take this Batman Catwoman out, since we already talked about that one. Really quick, I know that you got this one, but Crimson Flower, I'm just going to go ahead and
can we talk about the biggest disappointment of 2021 so far? And I didn't even read it. I didn't even read it. if anybody bought this book and you haven't opened the book yet, just open the book and prepare for disappointment. Because
Yeah.
I hate to be like this, because I feel like all art is subjective. And I feel like saying art is ugly is just mean. But the art in Crimson Flower is so ugly and so weird and distorted. And compared to the gorgeous covers that we're getting and we continue to get with issues 2, 3, and 4, it's like, why and how? It makes me sad.
It and I feel like I like the story of what's going on with Crimson Flower. The one way that I was able to get through with the artwork is that it reminds me of R. Crumb. And just to take a look here, I hope this shows up. So like here you just see like the huge distorted hands. Like I feel like I'm reading this from underwater maybe. And the only way that I really got through is because I'm like, okay, this is giving me some R. Crumb vibes with the artwork, but there's some moments here where, so it's a really deeply, it is an emotional story. It's something completely different than what I thought it was going to be, but there's like these moments where, like down here, I'm gonna try not to do anything spoilerly, but like if you can see, his like hands and arms just are like veiny, but it's really weird. I did not um I did not love this. It's almost like bad. Okay. I thought someone was gonna I thought Modern Lit, I thought that you were asking me to do an R. Crumb impression, and the only thing that I really remember is I watched the documentary with R. Crumb, and he has a thing for riding on women's backs. So he really liked big women and he wanted to ride on their backs a lot. That's the only thing that I remember from the documentary.
I mean, okay. I mean, we all have our things. I mean,
And
I want big women to grate their abs on my face. He wants to ride on people. Okay. I mean, to each their own.
so Chaos, apparently I see that you loved this book with the incredible art.
Sorry, Chaos.
I'm sorry for shitting on this so much, but the art I thought did not match this style, and I think that's what threw me off a lot with this book this
And
week.
it is. It's a lot like, I feel like covers should match the tone of what's inside, and I feel like I was going into this expecting something a little bit more, not necessarily regal, but from the cover, something a little bit more regal, something a little bit more fantasy-esque. And when I opened it, I was like, this ain't it, Chief. Don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it missed the mark. And I think I have a friend who several years ago was getting into like doing drag. And he was like, my shtick is going to be that I'm a bad drag queen and that, you know, I'm not going to shave and I'm not going to do things like this. And I'm like, you have to do it really well because either people get the joke and see what you're doing or they just think that you're not a good drag queen. So I think like whenever I think of like the artwork style like this, like either you have to do it really well and like you have to push it a little bit further, or else
I feel
people
like
just think that the artwork's not
I
that
feel
great.
like even if the cover was just more like this, if the cover was more like the interior artwork, I wouldn't be as, I guess, disappointed, or I wouldn't be as like shocked. But it's like I said, it's the fact that it feels two totally like tonally different things from cover to interior that I don't know. I just wish that they had matched a little bit more so I wouldn't be as disappointed. Sorry.
That's okay. So speaking of which, you know, I'll talk about Rain Like Hammers that came out this week was a really interesting book. And I think that this is one of the books that did that really well. Like, I don't think that you look at the artwork of Rain Like Hammers and you're like, oh, that artwork is incredible. I do get Mobus vibes from it, which
Oh
I really
yeah.
enjoy. I love that like simple but almost detailed, very depth depthsual, like I don't know, that's a new word that depth visual
Depthsual.
depth, whatever it is. But I feel like there was a lot of like empty, it utilizes the empty space, so that may be boring for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But this is a book that I think that you go into it knowing the artwork that you're going to get, that you
I
know the style that you're going to get. And this was a really fun book. I think it was maybe boring for some people, but I love weird sci-fi concepts and I'm here for Brandon Graham. That's all I got to say
That's all
about
you got.
That's all I got to say about that. So the artist, Chaos, was saying Luzniak. I'm probably totally not pronouncing that right. Um, sorry, Luzniewski. Um, but it sounds like they were already nominated for an Eisner. So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
But I don't know. Maybe I'll pick up Crimson Flower as a trade, but I may not be picking up. What were some of the other books that you read this week?
So I actually didn't read half of my stack. So what we talked about is basically all that I read because I've been so busy, and I've actually been reading a lot of other things. But I did pick up Barbalian Red Planet, which I know I'm gonna love. That's like a no-brainer. The new issue of We Live came out this week, and I'm really excited for that one because I feel like with We Live, every issue I'm like, I feel like I want to drop it off my pull list, but then something happens within the last couple of pages where I'm like, oh, it's dragging me right back in. So with what happened with last month's issue, I'm really excited to see what's going on with it.
Mm-hmm. Not surprisingly, Barbalian goes to a really, of course, it goes to a really emotional place. I know that whenever Colonel Weird Cosmogog came out, I was like, oh, I prefer that one to Barbalian. But then by the end of last issue, and then definitely with this issue, like this one gets me. This one goes
It gets
into
a lot more personal than we expect it to be because it comes off as like, this is another one where I feel like at least its main covers, because I feel like its variant covers are more queer based. And I'm sad because my shop never pulls me the variants like I asked them to, but it's whatever. But
that reminds me, I think so. That was another thing because I have stuff to send you. I have the Kevin Wada Barbalian for you if you haven't already gotten that.
I'm so excited.
But that was issue 2.
Oh, yes, issue 2. But like a Barbalian comes off and it feels like by covers, at least its main covers, it's this stereotypical alien falls to Earth, tries to connect with the people, yada, yada, yada type book. But it's not. It's actually, when I think it's all over, I feel like it's going to be a contender for one of the most important queer comics to have ever been written. I really do. And I just... Man, I just love this book a lot. And I feel like even if people aren't reading Black Hammer, if they just want a really nice queer story, you can definitely pick this up because it's so good.
Yep. That's the one thing that I do. I think that you would enjoy Cosmogog, Colonel Weird Cosmogog more if you had read Black Hammer, at least volume 1. But I feel like you could pick up Barbalian and have no clue what the hell is going on with the Black Hammer universe and still really enjoy it. So and then we were talking about We Live. This book, like every single issue, ends up doing something completely different where it ends up like where I thought this book was going to go in the first issue is completely different than where it went here. And it's really good. And there's a kid like smiling, giving thumbs up. This book is emotional. Do not be fooled.
Dark. It's dark.
It's dark.
It is a very dark book. And I'm actually really curious with We Live because I feel like I haven't seen too much about whether or not it is a limited series or if it's going to be like this long, like 20-something issue type series, because I feel like it could go either way. And I feel like I would be okay with it if it went either way because, you know, with issue 1 in particular, we saw the big map and all like the warning places and all of the different, you know, We Live prides itself on an apocalypse of many apocalypses. There's so much going on and there's so many dangers in the world that I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like I would be okay with being enveloped in that world and that, you know, seeing as the world develops out. I don't know. It's just really great and really, I don't want to say fun because it is not a fun book. It is definitely a very hardcore emotional book, but it's very interesting to see how large this series gets. I would definitely, we're on what, issue 4?
Issue 4. I think that you still might be able to find the single issues, but at this point, we're probably going to see the trade in the next 3 months or so. I imagine that this is going to go to issue at least 6, maybe 5. So we'll probably see the trade in like 2 to 3 months.
Probably.
I think that the one thing cool about this is that there's the little QR codes and things like that.
That give it there's QR code. So yeah, that is the cool thing about the single issues versus maybe the trade, because I don't know if they're going to do it with the trade, but each issue has music that was made and choreographed specifically for that particular issue. So it kind of helps set the tone as you're reading. So I really, really like it. And issue 1 did go, I think, to 3 printings. They either went to 3 or to 4 printings. So it might be hard to find. If you can find all 4, I'd say pick them up. But if you can't, then definitely just wait for the trade. I definitely wouldn't recommend spending a large amount of money to get the first couple issues, because like I said, they might be going in and out of print. But if you can get them, definitely pick them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can't pick up the single issues for cover price, then I would say maybe wait. Wait for the trade. So, well, a couple of the other books that I read this week, I read I Breathed a Body, and this one is a Zach Thompson. I had to think about it for a second. Zach Thompson joint.
So that's who did Lonely Receiver.
It is. And so when I was reading this, it basically follows a young kid and maybe like teenager who is like a live streamer, I guess. And weird, right? Who would want to ever do that? But so he basically spends his whole, or they spend their whole life on live stream, and like there's one point in the book where they're at the dinner table and he gets mad and he storms off and he's like, I'm going to my room and I'm going to go live stream. And so I think that the one thing interesting that Zach Thompson has done with this book, and as well as Lonely Receiver, which Lonely Receiver was easily one of my favorite books of 2020. It did just end last week, but I'm still counting it for 2020, is that Zach Thompson has this like Black Mirror-esque writing style and concepts. And honestly, like I read Lonely Receiver issue 1 and I was kind of confused, but I'm like, okay, I'm here for it. But then by issue 3, I was like, this is nuts, and it's one of my absolute favorites. And so I feel the same way about this. Like I read the first issue and I'm like, what is going on? But it ended up being really, really good. I wish that I had a better, like, it was really, really good, but
a lot of
it was
people
darn
seem to
good.
be talking about it. A lot of people seem to be liking it. I'm trying to see, because Zach Thompson did Lonely Receiver. They did I Breathed the Body, but they did something else, and it's eluding me right now. I'm gonna see if it's on their Twitter. Undone by Blood and No One's Rose from Volt
No
Comics.
one's,
And
oh my
No
goodness,
One's
no.
Rose was another very good, like, high concept. What did they call it? They called it
Like
eco apocalypse or something like that, or
yeah.
it was like really, really weird. So I feel like Zach Thompson just tends to go to these like you said, very, very big concepts, very Black Mirror-esque concepts, where it's like concepts that could possibly come to be, whether that's a good thing or not. So I don't know. I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Lonely Receiver was such a creepy identity and monogamy horror, and I loved it. Yeah, I definitely think I said earlier in the week that I feel like Zach Thompson just got the script for Black Mirror and has just been writing each episode as a comic, because every single, like Lonely Receiver, a little bit of No One's Rose, but especially Lonely Receiver, and now this one, I get Black Mirror vibes all the way.
Also, Travis, we're going to talk about Silver Coin. We're not there in the show yet, bud.
Yep. We'll talk about this. We're gonna spend some time. So I have a lot of other books. Let me just go ahead and like go through these really quick. Total Punks #3. You know, I'm a really big fan of this one, especially what Mad Cave has been doing. And this one goes up to issue 5, but I love it.
I love that all their covers have been like old homage band covers, because that one I think is Talking Heads. And then I think the next issue is going to be No Doubt.
No Doubt, Tragic Kingdom. So yeah, there's a lot of like really like nuanced like punk stuff in the background. So I really enjoy that. Okay, so bye. Just bye. It was good having you here. And then, okay, so of course I read Dr. Aphra. I will die on the hill that she deserves to be in her own show.
Right.
I know I say that every time. Abbott 1973 was really good. I don't even feel like you need to read the first volume, because this technically is like the first of a second volume, second arc. You don't even need to read it because it gives you a good little recap in here. But basically, think a black woman, a black female Constantine in 1970s Detroit, because she's doing like investigative journalism, and shit starts to get weird.
I have the first trade sitting on my shelf I picked up a while ago. I just still haven't read it. So you were talking about that highly this week. So I think I'm going to buckle down and pick up not pick it up, but read through my trade finally.
It was good. It was I don't necessarily want to say it was an easy one because it deals with some like tough subjects, and there's some moments in here that are very like tense moments, but it was still really, really good. Alrighty, so Philadelphia number
that cover's gorgeous.
Sorry, number 12. It really is. And we'll actually all be with Dan and Dee from FTO Nerd Talk. I'm talking to Rodney Barnes this upcoming Friday, so I'm really excited about that. And then I did read Cable. I've got those. I'm not going to talk about the other ones because I feel like they get talked about a lot. This one, however, has not been talked a lot about, and that's Yasmin. It's put up by Scout Comics, and maybe other than like Ghost, this is one of my favorite Scout Comics titles right here. It's about a young Muslim woman who is escaping terrorism, comes over to America, and this last issue was just so heartfelt and so beautiful. It was an end to a really good series, so I recommend picking up the trade.
Yeah, you've been praising that one, I think, since like we've been hanging out, so I definitely want to pick up the trade on that one.
I'm not exactly sure how Scout does their trades because I don't think I've ever seen a trade by them. I feel like there's a lot of hype around whatever issue 1 is coming out, and then I never really like
now that you say that, I've never seen a trade by Scout. That's weird. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah. And so I've gotten a chance to talk to at least one of the owners because they are based in Fort Myers. So I got a chance to go to their like little headquarter shop, and that was kind of fun. It was very entertaining to be able to talk to them. But they're a newer publishing company, and they have some great ideas, and I think they're doing really cool things. But so far it feels like it's just been single issues, and not enough trades. Alrighty, so Yasmin was very good. It read like Garth Ennis World War II stories, wonderfully painful. That's exactly it deals with trauma, it deals with violence, but I think that it does it in a really respectful way that doesn't glorify trauma or anything like that. So anything else that you want to talk about before we get into, I think that what's going to be the funnest thing that we're going to talk about, and that's going to be all of the new and exciting stuff coming out.
So excited over previews releasing. Like, I am such a ridiculous comic nerd. Like Friday previews came out, and I was like, Saturday morning, laid in bed, looked at all the wonderful new comics and cried about how much money I'm going to spend. But that's the type of nerd I am.
Before we go into the announcements of what's coming out, because most of the books that we're talking about are coming out in like March or April, and the final order cutoff is going to be in February. So if any of these titles sound good to you, go to your local shop and let them know, because they need to order it within the next month. So if you're not aware, your shop has a final order cutoff date where they need to put these on their order list before they receive them. So say in that final order cutoff date, and then maybe a week or two before the book comes out, it gets hot. If you don't already have it on your pull list, 1, you may not get it. 2, you may get it for stupid high prices. Or 3, like I hear from a lot of shops, they order it, don't give it to anyone, and then sell it on the aftermarket for like triple the price. So if you want it, order it.
Facts.
But before we talk about that, I've got a little list here that I have for next week. So next week, what I have on my list is I have Department of Truth number 5. I've got Post Americana number 2, Colonel Weird. I also put Daredevil 26 on the list because I'm curious to see what's going on with like this Daredevil and Elektra thing.
I think that's so neat. Her costume design is the coolest thing in the whole world, and I love it so much.
I ended up picking the reprint up or the variant cover up for last week because it has her on the cover, but I just don't have it on my list. Let me see. New Mutants number 15, and that's written by Vita Ayala. Ayala?
Ayala? I can never
Ayala?
pronounce their name. I just call them Vita.
Yeah, okay, so we'll just refer to them as Vita. And let's see here, the Dr. Aphra trade paperback comes out. So if you really liked me just kind of saying every single month, Dr. Aphra really needs a show, then
I
pick
should
up
be
the
on
trade.
bingo chart.
It should be. This character deserves a show. Dune number 4 comes out, so that's another one of our bingo titles is me talking about Dune.
Speaking of Dune, pause real quick. I know it has to do with the solicitations. I didn't put it on the list, but I wanted to tell you about it. Apparently, whatever issue in April for Dune comes out, there is a Jenny Frisian cover.
I saw
It's
that,
very
and
gorgeous.
I don't know if that's going to be like a 1 in 25. I really hope that it is not a 1 in 100, like the
Oof.
Paul Pope one, because my shop literally ordered 100 of those books, and I feel like I bought at least 20 of the issue number 1 in order to get that Paul Pope variant. But if that Jenny Frisian variant is a 100, I'll probably still buy it.
Oh Lord.
Apparently it's in case anyone's not seeing, apparently it's bath time for Luna
Subscribe
because he's
to Luna's OnlyFans.
to his OnlyFans. You'll get some lewd nudes, Luna nudes. So let's see here. Something is Killing the Children number 14, which is a solid title, is coming out next week. One thing that confused me, apparently Unkindness of Ravens 5 of 4 is coming out. I don't know what happened with previews, but apparently it was a 4-issue run, but number 5 is coming out, so I have no clue what's going on there. But
Or maybe because it got really well reception, maybe they pushed it to 5 issues instead of 4. Because I know a lot of people really did like that. That's interesting. What else you got coming out? Because now that you've said that, now I'm looking at what I've got coming out, and I'm like, whew, big week next week. Did not realize that, and now I'm frightened.
We Only Find Them When We're Dead number 5. And then I've got Stargazer number 5, and there's one called Sweet Downfall. I'm not sure why I put Sweet Downfall on my list. I can't remember what that one's going to be, but I guess it looked good. And then like Stargazer 5 by Matt Cave. I also have the No Heroine graphic novel, the Purple Oblivion graphic novel, and Loud, which is a Maria Lovett book.
Oh, No Heroine, I wanted to read. That
Yeah.
was one where the first issue spiked and it was just gone. Good luck getting it. And I was like, all right, I might have that on my list too for the trade, if I'm being quite honest. But on the app that I use, because I don't know about you, but I use League of Comic Geeks to help track all of my monthly subscriptions, and it tells me week to week what is coming out, and it even tells me how much I'm going to spend, which is really nice because then I can go into it prepared. So
I probably need that because
you
I go
probably
in.
need it.
Yeah, I'm just on the bottom, dumb bitch money.
I also use it to track my shop because sometimes my shop doesn't always get in everything that I ask for, or they might order it late and not tell me. And this is my way of just making sure, because sometimes especially with like these smaller indie, issues, sometimes I don't remember that that's coming out, or I don't remember that I ordered this and then I'll miss it. So it's a good way of keeping track. So since you went with what you have coming out next week, if you don't mind, I'd like to do the same. I feel like I've got actually a lot of different stuff than what you have. So that's kind of cool. So I have Batman Black and White number 2, which, if I'm being honest with you, I'm partially getting because of the cover, because it's Catwoman. And I'm like, all right, let me just dumb bitch money, throw it at Catwoman. But I actually like Batman Black and White because we get to see a lot of really great stories, a lot of unique stories, some really great art styles. So I've actually been enjoying that series a lot. Dead End Kids, Suburban Job number 1 comes out next week, which I'm really excited for because I absolutely loved Dead End Kids. And that was a book where when it debuted, you could not get the first issue. Like, good luck. So I'm really excited to get this. Ace Immortal, which is also by Source Point Press, is another book that I'm really, really excited for. It has to deal with a girl who is immortal and she has to spend it protecting the world, but she's dealing with all this trauma for living for so long and dealing with all of that. So I'm really excited to see what that book is about. Future State Aquaman #1, which is the only Future State title I'll be picking up. So my wallet is very thankful about that. Something is Killing the Children #14, which I haven't read since issue 7, but I have them all anyway. I'm a hoarder. I don't care.
That happens a lot. Buying comics and reading comics, and then reviewing comics are 3 separate, and then organizing them too is 4 separate things.
Totally different things. Stargazer #5, which of course I'm excited about, and Strange Adventures #8, which, if I'm being honest with you, is another one that I'm gonna buy. And I probably won't read it because I did not read #7. And at this point with Strange Adventures, I think I'm going to wait till they're all out and then just read them all together, because I did that with the first 5 or 6 issues and really enjoyed it. But then once I started reading them individually month by month, I was not enjoying it as much. And I feel like that's just the Tom King vibe, is you read it all together, not separately.
And that's probably why I enjoyed, like I said earlier, Vision and Mr. Miracle a lot more than I'm enjoying some of his stuff now, is because I can just read it all at once. So maybe take that feedback, Tom King. But let's go ahead and talk about, because that's just what we're picking up next week. And then there's some stuff, I know we talked a little bit about what's coming out in like February and March, but in April, there are so many cool things coming out. I know that I put a couple on the little thumbnail for the show, but there really is a lot of, you sent me the solicitations, and seriously,
and that's just stuff that I picked out that I was like, oh, this sounds cool, and it was either I want to talk about it or I'm gonna buy it because I'm an idiot. So I guess this is where we hang out and we talk about all the fun things and some of the not so fun things, but Mars wants to complain about them, so I put them on the list sort of books. So I guess anything else before we dive right on in?
Let's dive right on in.
So we're going to start with DC Comics, because I got a problem with DC Comics. So it feels like DC Comics is revolting or reverting back to their same old bullshit. And I'm very, very angry and very upset. We have gone from Future State, which is boasting all of this representation and this really diverse creator cast. And we even saw that with March, with the first month of New Frontier. And then with April, with some of the books that they are announcing and releasing, it feels like we're going back to the same old bullshit, where we're getting multiple Batman books again. We're getting the same crusty old white dudes on books again, and just not having a good time with it. So, but let's talk about it. So the first thing is we are getting a Green Lantern #1 again. This is written by Jeffrey Thorne and illustrated by Dexter Soy, whose artwork is some of my absolute favorite. I love Dexter Soy. Chef Kiss. He draws the best Jason Todd. Fight me. But what's really interesting about this Green Lantern #1 is we are seeing another Green Lantern. And it's a teenage Green Lantern, and it's a black girl. And while I'm excited about that, because I'm like, oh, diversity, I'm also thinking in the back of my head, you already have a black woman Green Lantern who is really, really rad and who I would like to see more of. So why are we creating another one?
Yeah, but Joe from Far Sector has been one of the best DC books that I've read in a while. And I mean, once again, I'm glad to see that, but I feel like they're going to give it to me and they're going to take it away.
Not only that, but like Green Lantern, when we think about Green Lantern lore, these rings are so powerful and so significant that only one person per planet is supposed to have them. But when we look at Earth, who is not that great of a planet, they've got like 8 or 9 different Green Lanterns that have rings. And I'm like, all right, man, I get it's comics and I shouldn't think too hard about comics, but you're kind of pulling some funny stuff now.
Yeah.
So that's the first title. We're seeing Robin #1, written by Joshua Williamson and Gleb Melnikov. I'm going to say now, I can't pronounce names, so I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. Feel free to slap me around a bit. I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one, because I really like Damian Wayne as Robin. I think he's super interesting. I think he's super funny when he's not supposed to be funny. So I guess that doesn't make him a good character, but whatever. But I like the idea. So with this, it's supposed to be, I guess, like a mini series of Robin trying to become the champion and trying to prove that he is the best warrior on the planet. So I think that that's going to be a really interesting take, because of course it's going to start off with him being like no, I'm the best and I can do whatever I want. And then him probably going through some sort of like change and realizing no, teamwork makes the dream work. I don't know, but I'm excited to see more Damian Wayne. The only weird thing that I found with this solicitation in particular is they even say in the solicitation that there's going to be a ton of first appearances. And I feel like that's just you trying to bait your book into selling for money and having more people buy your book. So I feel really weird about that, but it's Damian Wayne, so I'm going to pick it up because I'm a Damian Wayne show.
You know, honestly, like I probably would have picked it up, but now that you say, and I hate being that like spec person, but I know that if I don't put it on my list and it ends up being one of those spec books, then I'll end up not getting a copy usually. So,
Yeah.
and because my shop is a lot more indie heavy and I think Marvel heavy, they don't pick up DC books a lot. So I know for me, that's going to have to be something that I put on my list.
And I just feel like it's weird that if you're telling people in your solicitations, hey, this is going to be a hot book because there's going to be a ton of first appearances, there's just something really shady going on with your book. So it is what it is, I guess. So surprising no one, we're getting another Batman book, and it is Batman the Dark Knight.
But who is it written by?
But it's written by Tom Taylor, and I'm like, you're getting me here. I want to just see Tom Taylor on a mainstream Batman book. Like, I'm sure James Tynion is doing wonderful, and I love James Tynion, but I low-key want to kick Tynion off and put Tom Taylor onto the main Batman run, and just kind of see what he goes with it, because we've seen Tom Taylor now take on multiple, like, alternate universes. I want to see him actually do something in the mainstream continuum, and I think that this Batman book does take place in the mainstream continuum, but I just want to see him on Batman. I don't want to see him on Batman the Dark Knight. I don't want to see him on Detective Comics. Let the man just write Batman and be really cool and really chill. I don't know. And then this one has art by Andy Kubert. So I feel like with this book in particular, you're kind of like getting those like old comic book fans who love this like old traditional art.
Kubert.
Yeah, because Andy Kubert's a big name. Did I mention we have another Batman book? And this is the next Batman, Second Son #1. So this is the first we're actually seeing a future state coming into the Infinite Frontier, you know, and of course it was going to start with a Batman book. And I'm really excited to see Luke Fox, because it is Luke Fox, right?
That I'm not even sure of.
I don't even know who it is because I'm so tired of Batman that I just have blinders on. But I'm excited to see a black Batman. Like, I'm excited to see fanboys get upset. I'm excited to see representation. And this one is done by John Ridley, Tony Atkins, Travel Foreman, and Mark Morales. So I believe that a majority, if not all of the creative team is actually black. So that makes me excited because at least we're seeing black voices
Writing black
characters, which I feel like is how it should be, rather than writing some of it to feel kind of like Token-esque. So that I'm gonna let them have a pass on, because again, I want to see more diversity from DC. I just hate that it's another Batman book. But whatever. And then the last thing from DC that I'm excited for is Challenge of the Super Sons. So I'm really excited to see Super Sons come back, because that was a really fun book. If you don't know, it's Damian Wayne and Jonathan Kent teaming up. And I just think that they have a really fun dynamic. If you did not read the original Super Sons run, definitely pick it up, because it is really funny. It's just Damian Wayne being mean to John Kent for no reason, and then it backfiring half the time. So I'm really excited to see this like fun, lighthearted book, because we need more fun, lighthearted books from DC Comics.
From DC, yeah,
absolutely.
Ultimately, that's going to bring, I hope it brings more people in, but we'll see. And Peter J. Tomasi's writing it, and I know that they wrote something that I read recently or picked up recently that I really enjoyed, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Was it House of Penance?
It may have been House of Penance, yep. Because that one, and it was done, the artwork's done by the same, what is it, by Little Bird, that Ian Bertram? Really loved. Little Bird, Ian Bertram, yep.
Yeah, so Peter J. Tomasi, and that's who did the original Super Sons. So it's nice to see him come back into it and kind of do those characters, because I know he stepped off from Detective Comics, and now Mariko Takamaki is taking over it. So it's always cool to see him you know, back in the role, because I do like the way that he writes a lot of these classic DC comic characters, even for being just another white dude, I guess. Sorry, Peter, I still love you though. So that's everything from DC Comics. I'm gonna do something weird. I actually have Marvel comics to talk about, and I feel like that's weird because I never have Marvel comics to talk about. So the book I'm really excited for obvious reasons, Mighty Valkyries. Because I want more Valkyries.
Yep.
And Hela is the bad guy.
And it's funny because we get Return of the Valkyries right now with this like King in Black event. I don't know if it's like, you know, however many it's going to be, maybe like 4. So we'll see how this picks up after that, because we did just get Jane Foster Valkyrie and then Return of Valkyries, and of course Jason Aaron's writing this, because who better to write it, I guess, at this point.
And that's my biggest complaint, is like I feel like Jason Aaron has had this like hold on the Thor universe for like 10 years or so. You know, we've seen him write Thor. He wrote Mighty Thor. He wrote the Valkyrie. Now he's writing Mighty Valkyries. I feel like he's written some other stuff in between. I would like to see somebody else take over the Thor universe and do something new. Like, I know we have Donny Cates on it right now, and I know a lot of people really, really like his take on the character. But I just feel like having 10 years on one character and everybody else that's around him, I feel like it's a little much. And I just keep thinking how awesome it would be if a woman was writing this book or drawing this book. Just saying, it would be pretty cool. Just saying, to have females writing females. But speaking of females writing females, Women of Marvel #1, which is an anthology one-shot for the Women Marvel. And what's really exciting about this is Natasha Altereschi, who we both love from Heathen.
I can't reach it. But.
Can't reach it, but we know we love it. Natasha Altereschi is writing one of these stories in it, and was one of the mainline names, which makes me really excited because Natasha Altereschi is somebody that, like I said, we both really, really like. We think they're a fantastic writer. But I want to see her doing more stuff, whether it's indie stuff, whether it's her own stuff, whether it's the big 2. I mean, I'd love to see her on a Batwoman title. I know that you've said that. Seeing her on a Batwoman title would be absolutely amazing. And somebody oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I would love to see her do Return of the Valkyries or do Valkyries, like, especially because Heathen was this like Nordic lesbian adventure. Like, why not have her do the writing?
It's like it's like right there. But this kind of brings up what I was trying to mention, and that's somebody had tweeted at her talking about, I can't remember what book it was, but thinking about how amazing it would be to see Natasha Altereschi step into this large book. And she had actually commented back and said, you know, I would love to do big 2 stuff, but if I do big 2 stuff, I want to do it on a smaller scale. So I take that as she would rather do one-shots or maybe even miniseries. So knowing that's how she feels about it, and I can totally resonate with that, because I feel like taking on these big characters is a lot of responsibility, especially mentally, and then you have to deal with potential, you know, pushback from veterans, and we know how mean comic book fans can be, unfortunately. You know, maybe she just doesn't want to deal with that, and for that, I completely and totally respect her. So if seeing her on these smaller scale stories, if seeing her in one-shots and miniseries is how I have to get her, you know, she said she definitely wants to do indie stuff, but, you know, I got to respect her and what it is that she wants to do. But either way, I'm ridiculously excited. And I believe that entire book, because like I said, Natasha Altereschi is a headlining name, but there's also Eleonora Carlini is doing art, but then there was a bunch of other names, and they were all female names. So I'm going to assume that all of the writers and artists on this anthology are female. So we are getting women writing women and drawing women, which is exciting.
That is exciting.
Something exciting for you, because I know that you are an X-Men shill and a House and Powers of X shill. Way of X #1 by C. Spurrier and Bob Quinn. And C. Spurrier is, I think, a really great person to have on an X book.
I think so too. I think that they would handle the like big universe, because ultimately, like, when it comes down to it, X-Men, it's a sci-fi book, right? So I think that them Spurrier doing these big stories, I think that they're a good fit for this.
And this one, I don't know anything about it because, like I said, I've been kind of focusing on books like Marauders and
Hmm.
New Mutants and X-Force just in their trade. So I don't really know what's going on with the X universe. If I'm being quite honest, I don't know what this Way of X
Okay.
is, but I do know that Nightcrawler is at the forefront. So I feel like he's somebody that they haven't done a whole lot with him since they've rebooted this. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not really. I know that there's, to me, like one of the biggest things that obviously just happened was Ten of Swords, but that was like a limited series type thing. Like the
Mhm.
events of Ten of Swords didn't necessarily have too big of an impact. They could obviously bring that back a little bit. Um, but one of the coolest things that I think that's happening right now is this weird like blend of powers that we're getting. So like basically like half and half
Okay.
like breeding so anyways, that's I think that's pretty interesting, but I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with Way of X.
Okay. That's exciting though. And then last from Marvel is a book that I'm actually a little excited for, surprisingly enough. That is Spider's Shadow #1, from Chip Zdarsky and Pascal Ferry.
Hmm.
Shadow, I've already forgotten the name of Spider Shadow. Spider Shadow is supposed to be a like what if Peter Parker became Venom sort of story. But the way
Hmm.
that some of these covers are so far is it feels like it might be going into like a horror type vibe, and I'm here for that because quite frankly I feel like a character like Venom, whether it's Eddie Brock or Thompson, Flash Thompson, or at this point Peter Parker, I feel like it's an obvious go-to to make it a horror book, and I feel like Marvel's been sleeping on that. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Venom, but I've never seen any books that just look straight up horror, and I feel like
Hmm.
that's the perfect character to do that.
So I have been reading the Immortal Hulk, and it's like I feel like this is a pretty interesting horror book. It has gone to a much darker place than I thought that one, like a Marvel book was going to go to, and two, that like an Immortal Hulk, like a Hulk book was going to go. And these were gifted to me by Bob, Bullseye Bob, Everything Comics, and I probably never would have picked it up, but it was basically sold to me as like horror Hulk, horror
Yeah.
Hulk.
I've always heard it's been like horror Hulk. I've always heard it's been like very body horror, and it's a book that's definitely been on my
Hmm.
TBR list that I need to read. Modern Lit brings up a good point that Zdarsky has been doing horror,
Yeah.
and we'll talk more about that, I promise. But yes,
Hmm.
Zdarsky did just
But
do
wait, there's
Stillwater.
more.
But wait, there's more. But Zdarsky did just do Stillwater, and while I wasn't crazy about Stillwater, at least in its first issue, it might read differently in trade. Um, I would like to see a horror Spider-Man, and I'm gonna say something that's gonna excite you. I'm gonna will it into the universe. Can we put Ram V on a horror Venom book?
That,
It's
as
perfect,
long as
right?
it really is, and as long as it doesn't take away from the horror that he's doing with Swamp Thing, and I mean, we'll talk a little bit about Rom V in a little bit too. There's a lot to talk about, folks. But there is, like, once again, Rom V is one of my absolute favorite writers right now. Blue and Green was another of my favorite books of 2020, probably the top of 2020. Um, so we'll
But yeah,
talk a little bit.
Ram V on horror Spider-Man, horror Venom. At this point, I should just be an editor for comic books. I have some really good ideas. Listen, Marvel, DC, I'm your girl. I got you. Batman
Yeah,
Year 18, written by Jen, aka Comic Books Will Break Your Heart, illustrated by Jen
to be
Bartel,
determined.
Babstar.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go Maria Lovett on that one.
Ooh, that would be
Yeah,
good. That would be good.
yeah.
So that's everything from our big two. Now we get to the fun stuff, and that's indie comics. That's what I'm mostly excited for. So, Image Comics. Since everybody keeps mentioning it, you know what? We're just going to start with this one. Silver Coin #1. I am
Yep.
so ridiculously excited for this because it is a horror anthology series coming from Image Comics in April. It is boasting so many good writers. So Chip Zdarsky, Ed Brisson, Kelly Thompson, Jeff Lemire. Like, what the hell? And I'm like, listen, when we think about horror, we think about horror comics lately. Let's think about the horror comics that have been working. Basically everything WB Maxwell Prince does. Did I say that right?
W Maxwell Prince.
WB Maxwell Prince.
Because think about the success that Ice Cream Man has had, the success that I think Ha Ha is going to have. Thinking about those books, and honestly, I like the idea of just like these anthologies where maybe you don't pick up number 1, but then you end up getting into like 2 or 3. You can pick them up and then read the trade as well. So I really like the idea of anthology books because you can go a month without reading one of them and you still know what's going on, right?
Yeah, no, and I just think that horror, anthology style horror, I feel like that is the way to consume horror content. I mean, like you've already mentioned Ice Cream Man and Haha, which I was also going to mention, but let's look at Junji Ito and with his collected anthologies like Shiver and Smashed, which are anthology stories. I feel like one of the biggest problems horror has, whether it's in comics, in books, in movies, television, video games, you name it, I feel like horror tends to often overstay its welcome. And that's when horror becomes less effective, is when it starts to become predictable or it starts to drag out and just become boring. So I feel like horror in anthology style stories where they're short and sweet and they don't overstay their welcome, that's going to be the way that we need to consume it. So Image Comics recently just announced Silver Coin. I believe that was done on like Wednesday or Thursday before previews even hit. So I'm really, really ridiculously excited for it. Some of the covers are absolutely gorgeous. So I might be picking up a couple of myself. And not to be like that spec person, but I feel like you said, when we look at Ice Cream Man and we look at Haha, which are both from Image Comics, I feel like Silver Coin is going to be another one that gets really, really hot really quick. So if you are interested in this book, I highly recommend pre-ordering, picking up the first issue.
I would not be surprised if Silver Coin, definitely with the hype, because Image has been posting so much about it on their like Instagram. Like each day they were kind of posting a new writer on it. Yeah, they really did pull a crossover on that one. But I think that this is going to be, just looking at the creative team, I know that there's going to be some good stuff. I know that there's going to be some really interesting covers. And I can easily see this going to like the first issue going to second and third print. So once again, final order cutoff for it is the middle February 18th to get it in April. So just make sure that, if you're interested, go to your local comic book shop, tell them we sent you. I don't know.
I don't know if that'll do anything, but you can tell them that we sent you.
Yeah. So just say, I have dumb bitch money to spend, and I'm here to spend my dumb bitch dollars.
Silver Coin it's going to be big. I'm excited for that Jeff Lemire story in particular because I love Jeff Lemire. So I'm excited to see like Kelly Thompson take on horror because I love some of the work she does with Marvel. So to see her go into that indie field, which she did for a little while, but to go back into indie comics and to go into a horror route in particular, I think is going to be really exciting to see.
I'm not sure why, but I thought I kept wanting to see on this list Becky Cloonan, and I'm really surprised I haven't seen her attached to any of it. Because by chance or providence is one of my favorite horror anthologies, which was originally a webcomic and then got published by Image. So wouldn't be surprised if Becky Cloonan, has a cover or two or something to do with it, because I think that would be a really fitting thing for her to do.
Agreed, 100%. Speaking of anthologies from Image Comics, I'm really excited about this one. Old Guard, Tales Through Time is a new anthology series spanning the Old Guard, which, if you know me, if you've been watching my channel, you saw me fall in love with the Old Guard and become slowly obsessed with the Old Guard. It was probably one of my favorite things that I read in 2020. I know it didn't come out in 2020, but it was something that I just got really excited for. Old Guard Volume 2 was the first thing I read in 2021. Now I have to painfully wait for Volume 3, but that's okay because Image is going to give me an anthology series. And I feel like the Old Guard, which if you don't know is about a story of soldiers who have lived for thousands and thousands of years and they cannot die. This is perfect for an anthology series because not only do we have several characters that are in the story, but there's probably characters we also probably haven't seen. Maybe at some point they died, but it's just being able to go through different time periods and see the adventures that these characters have experienced and lived is very exciting to me. So Greg Rucka is going to be on it, but then we're also getting some other people in the book. Like I know I saw our buddy Vita is going to be on the book. I'm very excited because, you know, I love queer voices, writing queer characters. And I know that Vita just loves the series a whole lot because they tweet about it all the time. So I feel like that's like a dream come true, is being able to write for those series that you love. So Old Guard Tales Through Time, I think it's going to be about 5 issues or so, but I am ridiculously excited for it. And I feel like this is going to be a great jumping on place for a lot of people because, again, it's an anthology. So if you miss an issue or if you just want to experience these characters, you know, jump into it.
That, and I think what I like is that it's going to be character driven, right? So it's going to be, we're going to get to see Joe and Nikki. Is it Joe and Nikki?
Joe and Nikki have a variant cover, and I'm so excited.
Yes. So I'm really hoping that it goes into depth into maybe these characters. I didn't read the second volume of Old Guard, so maybe they go into their history a little bit more. But thinking about the first volume and thinking about the Netflix movie, and one of the best scenes is this conversation about their love and their relationship. That moment like brings tears to my eyes even now. So I really hope that we get more of that because seriously, that moment has to be like literally giving me goosebumps thinking about that moment in that book.
Not only that, but they are the literal trope of enemies to lovers, but they're enemies to lovers in the span of like 20 seconds, which is fine with me. I don't care. I'll take it. But like, I'm so excited to see more. So I want to say maybe possibly potentially the first issue is going to be about Nikki and Joe just because the variant cover is them in particular. So I don't know if each issue is going to have multiple stories or just one, but I can definitely expect to see more Nikki Joe, at least in that first issue, at least I hope.
Do we have a release date or anything on the next upcoming movie I mean, I know that one came out at the beginning of the pandemic, so I know that a lot of production was put on hold. So do we have any idea when?
We do not, and I think the reason for that is because the end of the movie actually spoils the second trade a little bit. It spoils the second trade a little bit. So I mean, and that's not necessarily bad. It set it up. But if you want to know more, I would definitely recommend checking out the second trade. I'm assuming that they're waiting for the third volume to be written or come out because I don't know if it's going to come out in single issues or if it's going to get like the crowded treatment where volume 3 goes straight to trade, which I can't see it doing that if they're doing an anthology series. But yeah, we don't have a date on the second movie, but I'm assuming it would be after at least the third arc.
Yeah. So some of the other stuff that we have for Image, I know that I am really excited for the two, and I don't necessarily want to like lump these together, but Helm Grey Castle and Home just looks so good. I think that I heard about Helm Grey Castle because the writer of Dryfoot, like it's not the same writer, but he had mentioned it in his newsletter that a friend of his was writing it. I forget which one of it. I think it was Helm Grey Castle.
I could see that.
Yeah, and I think that you had met it's like D&D inspired, and then I was just like done.
Yeah, so from what I've seen from solicitations, it just seems like D&D with Latinx inspiration, which I think is really fantastic because D&D is supposed to be this fantasy world where it can be anything. But it always feels like when we see fantasy worlds, they're always based off of European structures and white structural type thing. So I think seeing these fantasy worlds from other cultures would be something really interesting to see. And not to mention representation is just uber important.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to the creative team as well. So
absolutely.
Excited to see those.
And then you had mentioned we have Home. So Home is another Latinx story where it has to deal with a mother and her son trying, I guess, to get into America or trying to escape, from their home country. And at one point, the two get separated. And from solicitations, it's led to believe that due to the anxiety and the stress of the separation and just experiencing this in general, that the young boy is getting superpowers or experiencing superpowers. So kind of an X-Men feel there, which makes sense because X-Men was based off of, diversity and representation and all that stuff. So, it feels like I don't know. It feels like it'll just work. And that one's only a 4-issue miniseries. So it's going to be something short and sweet. And I feel like it's not anything, massive to commit to. So, I think picking up the first issue is definitely going to be something I know I'm going to be picking up. You're probably going to pick up because it seems definitely in your wheelhouse. And the last thing from Image Comics, I don't want to really talk about it, but I feel like I should mention it because it's their pick of the month or whatever. But it's Geiger #1 from Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. So I guess if you like Doomsday Clock.
Yeah. I was going to say like Doomsday Clock. I tried so many times to get into it and I just couldn't do it. And at first I thought it was because when the single issues were coming out, it was like the schedule for Doomsday Clock. It was like, well, we'd have it 1 month and then it'd be like 2-3 months later, another one. And it just never felt consistent. And I think when I saw the cover for Geiger, it's like a big explosion. Mushroom cloud. So it gave me Scumbag vibes for some reason, and I was just not into Scumbag. So
I'm not interested. First of all, it's Jeff Johns and Gary Frank or Gary Brown. I don't know. I've lost track at this point. But so is it going to be multiple months before you get a second issue? That's my first question. My second question is, why are we still giving Jeff Johns work? That's question number 2. There, I've said it. Don't care. I used to love Jeff Johns, and now he just don't ever meet your heroes, friends. But the one thing I'm actually really interested in is the fact that Image Comics is posting 2 semi-similar post-apocalyptic books back to back, because in March we're seeing Noctara from Scott Snyder, and who's doing that with him? Oh no. Oh, Tony Daniel. We're seeing Scott Snyder and Tony Daniel's Noctara, and then literally the month after, we are seeing Geiger by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank or Gary Brown. It's on here somewhere, but yeah. I feel like, are these basically the same creative teams? Did I say that? Did I go there? Are they basically the same creative team?
I think that there is going to be like that creator fatigue where I feel like where there's people who just love them just because they're a big name and are going to pick it up just because they're a big name. I'll probably still also be picking it up because it's an Image #1. Like I'll pick up an Image #1 of anything. But I don't know. I feel like we're going to get fatigue with these types of titles, but they'll still get them anyways.
For sure. So that's everything from our big 3. Now to get into the really, really fun stuff. The small indie publishers. So Dark Horse actually has something that I thought was really, really neat. And that is, I realize now I have to pronounce it. Kojikaru the Spinner. And this is a Mike Mignola title, which is always exciting. Now he's only doing the writing for it. It looks like Christopher Golden is doing the art. But Mike, I
would be surprised if Mike Mignola is going to do the cover as well. Like at least give me a Mike Mignola cover.
But Mike Mignola was actually tweeting about this, and I retweeted it, not even realizing it was a Mike Mignola creator thing. I was just like, I saw the image, and I was like, this looks so cool and I'm really excited for it. And then I realized who it was from. And then Mike Mignola liked my tweet and I was like, oh, this is kind of new. I was like, this is fun. but it almost reminds me of like a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen mixed with like a Penny Dreadful type thing. So it's all of these like monsters and like monster hunter type creatures. I don't know. It's just there's a big lineup where you see all these different types of creatures that you would expect from like Universal Monsters or like I said, something in Penny Dreadful. And it just looks really exciting to me. I don't know what else it's about beyond that, but the fact that you're having this many interesting characters in one book and it has League of Extraordinary Gentlemen vibes, I'm kind of here for it. I'm kind of into it. Yeah. That's the main cover, but there's a variant cover somewhere that has them all. And it's the Mike Mignola image. And it's just go onto his Twitter. I know he's been tweeting about it. Look at those characters and try to tell me that they're not neat, because they are neat as hell.
So really quick, I just have to, because we were talking about it earlier. So this is the same month, April, and I just picked it up because and Crimson Flower looks like it's coming out. It's only a 4-issue limited series. So.
Only 4.
Sorry. Only 4, just had to, since I had pulled that up right here.
Womp womp.
Womp womp.
So Source Point Press, which is a smaller publisher, but I've really liked a lot of the stuff they've been putting out lately with The Love She Offered, and then of course Dead End Kids. This one is called 25th, and it's supposed to be like a gang beat 'em up fighter, but then they fall in love with the rival gang leader. And you know I'm here for romance books because we don't get enough romance books in comics. And it's again the enemies to lovers trope, and I'm like, you've got me interested, and it just looks really cool and really fun. So
one thing that I'm noticing here is that it's only this is 1 of 3, so it's going to be a pretty short little book here.
And I feel like Source Point Press does that a lot. I don't think I've seen them do a series that's been more than 3 or 4 issues. So everything they've done has been kind of short and compact and sweet. And I don't know. I'm excited for this one. So we'll see how it goes, because they have been another publisher that I feel like has been hit or miss with people. With me, I really liked everything that they've done, but I know for a lot of people it's been hit or miss. Boom Studios, well, we see the return of Seven Secrets in April. I thought I'd just mention that because we all know that I love Seven Secrets. So it'll be a perfect time for you to read the trade and then get back into Seven Secrets with me and cry all the time about it. But we are seeing a Magic the Gathering book. And for those of you that don't know, I am a huge Magic the Gathering nerd. Like, I have thousands of cards and I play every weekend with my friends virtually, of course, because we're in a pandemic. Don't be crazy now.
It's so funny because when we were talking backstage before the show, I was like, oh, like, okay, there's a Magic the Gathering coming out. Okay. And you're like,
I'm a nerd.
I'm a huge MTG fan, and I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So I didn't know that about you. So that's little Mars fun fact.
I'm a huge MTG nerd. Like, just I love playing it. I'm okay at it. Really love it. But Magic the Gathering is one of those universes that I feel like is so huge and has so many interesting characters and so many interesting faucets, whatever, that I feel like it makes for a perfect comic. And I know they've had comics before, but they've all felt very like enclosed, and a lot of them I feel like have dealt with like one specific character, whereas this is just going to be Magic the Gathering, and it's going to involve a lot of the planeswalkers and a lot of the characters. And my girl Vraska is going to be in it, so I'm like, I'm here with that. Vraska's a Medusa lady, so obviously, you know, it's my brand. But to see Boom Studios get the title, I think is really, really exciting, because I think for the longest time, I think IDW had the rights to it. So
because they have a lot of the rights to like publishing stuff,
and those books weren't always the best. I mean, I loved them because I was a nerd, but I feel like this Magic the Gathering comic might actually be a good read for people, even if you don't play Magic, if you just like fantasy stuff, if you just like Dungeons and Dragons-esque type stuff, because it's all the same stuff. I just feel like it would be a really good book to pick up, and I'm a Magic nerd, so I wanted to talk about it.
Even though I'm not into Magic the Gathering, I've tried several times to get into it, could never do it. I think it seems interesting. I've liked some of the D&D books that have come out, so I'll probably pick this up.
Good stuff. And Chaos did mention that Source Point has Cult of Dracula coming out, which comes out in March. And I actually did want to mention it today, so thank you for helping me segue that, and not awkwardly, but Cult of Dracula looks really, really rad. It kind of gives me Dracula motherfucker vibes, but that it might
But I know
actually
you
be
didn't.
good.
I was gonna say I know you didn't love that title, but that's okay.
But it gives me the vibes where it has to deal with like the wives and things like that. So I'm really excited to see more Dracula stuff, and the covers for those actually just look really rad. But also from Boom Studios, and this is going to be kind of a double whammy here, so you see how I'm planning. The first book is a book that I know you're really, really excited for. That is Many Deaths of Layla Starr from our boy Ram V and Felipe Andrade. That sounds right. You want to talk about that one a little bit because you're so excited for it?
I just want to say, like, I am apparently this is now a Ramby Stan account because I
Stand
love
account.
everything that they have been writing. And just looking at this, I just want to keep looking at this David Mack cover forever and ever. It gives me vibes from Kabuki, but it's basically a woman who is immortal who now has to live their life like she finds her immortality. So I just think that's really interesting and thinking about Romby's writing and thinking about These Savage Shores, which is really good. I feel like it'll remind me of These Savage Shores a lot.
Mm-hmm. Because I definitely think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like he's going to bring a lot of his background and his
Hmm.
cultural background
Yeah.
into it, which he also did with These Savage Shores. And I feel like when we look at a book like that has multiple lives and immortality, I feel like it's
Hmm.
just going to be really interesting to see his take on that instead of seeing the same, you know, I guess generic trope over and over. He always tends to add like that extra something to a book that just
Yeah.
makes it so unique and so interesting. So we're both really, really excited about that. I think I'm actually more excited from this one from Ram V,
Hmm.
and that is Radio Apocalypse from Volt Comics.
Yeah.
Because I just love apocalyptic books, and I like seeing Ram V on another Volt title because
Hmm.
he gave us These Savage Shores, and now that he's back with Volt, who lets him do whatever he wants, which I'm sure Boom might let him do whatever he wants too at this point.
That's true.
I'm just excited to see where this one goes. So, Radio Apocalypse is another post-apocalyptic story, but it has to deal with the last radio station in the world and how this radio station offers, I guess, salvation to those that are in the apocalypse. So I'm just excited to see his take on that because we haven't really seen him do a post-apocalyptic book yet, and I'd like to see how he takes on post-apocalyptic stuff. So that one is coming from Volt Comics. I was actually surprised that that is going to be the only series from Volt Comics. But you know what? We got to take what we can get because comics, man, they're great. And Jen has gone radio silent. So now I'm just going to talk about random, needless things. I don't even know if she can hear me, but I'm just talking about random. Oh, she can hear me. So if I just say that I love Jen so much and she's the best person in the whole wide world, oh, there it is.
Yeah, my AirPods just died, so it's time to put on the rechargeable wired one.
The wired ones. But yeah, so double Ram V in the month of April with two. That's like I feel like that's huge getting two creator owned
Mhm.
series. Like it's not just, hey, I'm writing a big 2 series and a creator owned series
Yeah,
where I'm
because
writing
he's
2
doing
series.
Justice League Dark. He should be continuing after Future State, right?
Yep, he's still doing that. He's still doing Catwoman. He's doing Swamp Thing.
Hmm.
Like this man, he don't stop. I want to know how he
No.
does this.
I want to have him continue to do everything forever and ever because like I'm waiting for the title of his that I'm just like meh because everything has been so fantastic.
You need to read his Catwoman. I think you would really
Okay.
like it. I haven't read it yet, but
Hmm.
just seeing like the snippets of the artwork and just the flow of the writing,
Hmm.
and a lot of people have said that they really, really like him on Catwoman. So
You're not talking about the Future State from this week, right?
no, I'm talking about he has been writing Catwoman since issue
Oh,
like
that's right.
16 or 17.
Yep.
He wrote 2 issues earlier on in the run when I was actually still caught up, and I
Hmm.
really did like the 2 issues that he did as like a filler. And I guess because of the popularity of it, they brought him back and just stuck him on the run full time. So, you know, it's a great book. And then the last book that I have to talk about for us today It is called You Promised Me Darkness, #1 from Behemoth Comics. And I feel like Behemoth Comics has been kind of surprising us lately because we had A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. We had Necromorphous, which was really, really good. And I feel like this is going to be another horror-esque comic. So You Brought Me Darkness has to deal with Halley's Comet. You know what I mean? It has to deal with Halley's Comet. And I guess these twin boys get superpowers or some type of power from the comet, and now there's just this evil darkness that is trying to feed off of them, and it's them basically trying to run away from it and try to escape it before it consumes them entirely. What
I think I read in the either in the preview solicitation or somewhere else that it got related to the Wicked and Divine, which I thought was really interesting because with Wicked and Divine, of course, they come every couple of decades. Yeah. So I felt like with the coming of Halley's Comet, like it felt similar to that.
It kind of does feel very similar to it. But the thing that grabbed me the most with this was its covers for a couple different reasons. First off, this small indie publisher who is publishing a new book is doing 5 or 6 different covers for this one series, which I thought was very ballsy to do. And it's a big risk to be doing that because it's not like you're a Spider-Man book or a Batman book where you can guarantee that fans of those characters are going to buy multiple copies, you know. But at least with like a couple of the covers, they are very striking and very dynamic, and they are definitely books like Girl Walk Home Alone at Night in the way that they were done and the way that they're graphically presented. They're definitely books where if I was walking in a comic shop and I didn't know anything about these books, if I saw them, I would immediately pick them off the shelf. So again, that is You Brought Me Darkness. You Promised Me Darkness.
You Promised Me Darkness.
From Behemoth Comics. So there's a lot of really, really great stuff coming out. I feel like there's a little bit of something for everybody. I'm glad to see that we're getting a lot more horror comics.
I was just about to say, I feel like it's very horror heavy, which for me, like it almost surprises me that it's coming out in April. But at the same time, then I think about the trades are probably going to come out in October. So I think that thinking about how next year is going to go, like in October of this year, we're going to have all of these comics to talk about in trade. And I think that we're already talking about the top list of 2021 horror. So like this is probably going to be the list for those October spooky reads.
No, for sure. Because when we think about like horror recommended reading lists, you know, a lot of people that are like, oh, I want to read something spooky. They're a lot more of like the casual audience that are going to be more inclined to pick up trades versus say picking up single issues. I mean, we always see a couple horror comics come out around spooky time. Like we saw Autumn Knoll this year come out around spooky time.
Unkindness of Ravens.
Unkindness of Ravens.
All of those came out, like the first issue came out then, and they're just about to be collected in like the first trade. So I think that this will be a good list for October.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of really exciting stuff, and I can't wait to see, you know, comics. I always say that, 2020 is the year for comics. 2019 was the year for comics. I just feel like we're starting to really push the boundaries of what comics can do and what comics are willing to do, and that makes me really excited just to see the future of comics and how it continues to develop and change and kind of breach its way out and become something larger than itself.
And I think too, like I know for me, my attention span is kind of like crappy, so I feel like reading a comic versus reading a long form book or prose book, I guess. So comics are where it's at for me. I mean, it has been for a while, but
I agree 100%. Like I can't even tell you the last time I read a prose book. Like I have a couple Star Wars books that I got for Christmas that I'm like really excited to read. And every time I go, I'm like, but where's the pictures? There's no pictures. What do I do?
I just picked up, it's funny because yesterday you like Instagram like tagged me and you're like, hey, what are you doing? And I was literally on my way to Powell's. So I picked up 2 books from Powell's so I got First Knife, which when it originally came out by Image Comics, it was called Protector, but then it changed its name, and I think that it was one
Really?
of those that got disrupted by the pandemic and stuff closing down. So I'm excited to read that because I read the first and it was really good. And then speaking of prose books, I'm not sure if I'm actually going to be able to read this, but I did pick up the Battle Royale book.
Ah!
So this is a big one. I'm going to try to keep this by my work desk, so I can maybe like sneak in a page or two every so often. But I did just pick up the Battle Royale book.
Me.
I did actually,
Oh,
because you had mentioned in one of the, like maybe like a month ago, you mentioned Battle Royale, and I'm like, you know what? Let me see if Powell's has it, and they do. But here's the thing: is that it's a prose book. It's not the manga; it's the prose book. So
I need to. So it was actually a prose book, and then it was adapted to a manga. I need to get my hands on the prose book just because I love it so much. But I feel like, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't read the prose book, but I feel like reading it in prose is going to be a very large disservice because, at least for me, reading the graphic novel or the mangas rather, what really sold it for me is how horrifying it could get, how horrific it got, and how bloody and brutal it got. And yeah, it's going to get bloody and brutal, but you're going to have to visualize it yourself. Whereas in a manga, it's right there on the pages for you. But I can't wait for you to read it and experience it. And I absolutely love the cover for that. The cover is just absolutely gorgeous. And it's just, man, Battle Royale. I could talk about Battle Royale for like 4 hours. It's my favorite thing that I lied. Battle Royale is my favorite thing I experienced in all of 2020. I don't know what that says about me and how my 2020 went, but it's so good. It's so good.
Well, I've got to wrap things up because I I have to go to work in a little bit. But this is seriously the best way to spend a Sunday morning. Because we talked about a lot of these books. And remember, like, I know I keep saying this, but folks, like, we talked about a ton of books that are coming out. Your local comic shop may not know that you want to order these. A lot of the books that we talked about, final order cutoff date is in the middle of February. So make sure that if any of the titles that we talked about in pretty much the last half of the show, if any of them sounded interesting, go to your local comic book store, see if you can order them, or, you know, I was going to say DM us or whatever. We'll probably give you some good recommendations as well.
Like, seriously, I don't know about you, but my DMs are always open if you want to like hit me up and be like, hey, I just read this. I want more, even if it's not something that's coming out soon. If you just need comic book recommendations, listen, first of all, go to my channel because that's why I have a channel. But second off, just DM us because, like, I don't know about Jen, but I am always like super excited to be like, oh, well, you like this book? Well, you're going to like this, this, and this. Jen can experience it because I have sent her videos at 2 a.m. being like, please read X, Y, Z, and this is why. And I just scream about them at 2 a.m.
And I'm okay with that. Like, that's how I respond to things. So anything, I know that you said that you did some filming, anything coming up on your channel that you want to talk about really quick?
I'm hoping maybe today, maybe not. I don't know, but very, very soon. I'm working on a Wonder Woman recommended reading list that, like I said, I've been editing since 7 a.m. So I'm hoping maybe it'll be up by this afternoon or late this evening. I also filmed a video about my favorite DC comics because, like I said, Future State has gotten me really nostalgic for DC and just why I love them. So I sat down and talked about my favorites and maybe talked about Green Arrow for 15 minutes straight that I have to edit out. But yeah, I've got a couple things in the works that are coming to the channel. So do that, like and subscribe, notification bell. Jen always hypes me up and has all my shit below. So check it out if you're interested. I don't know. This is weird promoting myself. I hate it.
Yeah. It always feels like unnatural. And then I saw, So anyways, please make it feel worth it to us. To do the weird,
please validate us.
Yeah, validate us begging, I guess. So anyways, you can definitely this upcoming week I will be on Comic Chop News, and we'll be talking to Rodney Barnes on there, and then I'll be here on Sunday. So just those two shows. I might, if I have a big pickup on Wednesday, I may go live. But that's always just kind of like hit or miss. I usually do stuff on Instagram, so if you don't know me on Instagram, go and follow me on Instagram. But it was so much fun talking to you. I always love our talks.
Best part of my Sunday.
Oh, best part of Sunday. Now I've got to go to the worst part of Sunday. So alrighty, folks. I feel like I should have an outro. Like, I feel like I should have like a stay healthy and wear a mask and
stay safe, wear your mask,
stay
read
safe
lots
and
of comics,
read lots of comics.
pre-order comics at your local
Pre-order all the comics. Tell them we sent you, and have a beautiful day, folks. Bye.
Bye.